Yo, what is going on, guys? It's Moral, back with another video in our new city park. And today we are building for the beautiful Parasaurolophus, or as some people like to call it, Parasaurolophus. I've heard that said a lot. One of those names that nobody really knows how to pronounce, and everyone just kind of picks their own choosings of what they want to call it. But I say Parasaurolophus. I think that's the right way. If you say the other way, though, that's fine. People can be wrong sometimes. So, starting off this build, we wanted to really set the precedent of what the park's going to look like. And by that I mean, how are these exhibits going to be laid out? Are they going to be like Jurassic Park? Are they going to be like open sanctuary fields, or are they going to be actual modern looking enclosures for a real animal, which is what I wanted to go for. So it's kind of a big pressure put on these Parasaurolophus, Parasaurolophi. I don't know. I don't know, like Parasaurolophus, I don't know what the plural is. Parasaurolophuses, they have to be the main star of this area, because they're the first thing you see when you come to the left of the entrance. Well, I'm sure eventually I'm going to put more near the entrance, but like, putting something right at the entrance kind of freaked me out. That was a little too scary to start with. I needed to do something kind of near the entrance, kind of, you know, a basic build, but not so much the first thing you see. So, yeah, so I based it off of a lot of ungulate enclosures as the main inspiration of real-life zoos. And a lot of those, they're very much just big fields with kind of stable-looking backstage enclosures, which isn't a bad thing, but you know, it is pretty basic, so at least it's not too crazy of a build to start off with. It's something simple, something easy to understand. Here I'm just kind of drawing out what I think the enclosure is going to look like, and I guess in the end I did follow it pretty closely, because this is basically what it ends up looking like. I also wanted to make sure everything in the zoo was, or in this, I don't know, city park, whatever we're calling it, I don't know, park, Jurassic Park, something. I wanted to make sure that the enclosures weren't oversized, because I feel like, in comparison to like maybe someone building a Planet Zoo, I feel like a lot of the time enclosures in this game get so massively overscaled because it's dinosaur. It needs like 100,000 meters, but I mean, in reality, the realistic scale for this is a lot smaller than you often think. Especially in a city like this, it'd be a lot less room to work with to fit in an entire zoo. So I think we went for a pretty solid sized exhibit here. They have enough space to not feel overcrowded, but not to the point where it feels like it's way too small, or not way too small. Not to the point where it feels like it's massive and there's no like realism to it. So yeah, here we are working on these, I guess, stables, Parasaurolophus stables. And, well, never mind. Work on the fence now. I really like this fence design I came up with. It's really simple. It's very naturalistic. I tried to make it a little more industrial, and I ended up putting chain link fences behind it as the main actual support structure, while the logs are more just, I wouldn't say they're decorative completely, but they are more of a secondary design choice. I don't think the logs on their own would actually keep in a dinosaur of this size. So yeah, also with it being a city park, I wanted to start kind of smaller. Not to say Parasaurolophus is small, but I did choose the smallest subspecies. I can't even remember the subspecies name. I think it's the Certo something. It's like Cryo, Certo, or something like that. Cristatus, Crito, Cristatus, or something like that. It's the smaller one with the smaller crest, and honestly, I really like it compared to the actual Parasaurolophus. I don't know. Well, by actual, I mean, you know, the main Parasaurolophus we know and love, the Walkeri. It's obviously still a Parasaurolophus, but it's the one you think of as like a lesser Parasaurolophus, I guess, in the sense of like common names. I was thinking about that a lot as I was like building this. Is like in this world where dinosaurs are in these modern realism zoos, they'd probably have common names, and for Parasaurolophus, I definitely could see it being something like the lesser Parasaurolophus and the greater Parasaurolophus, kind of like lesser and greater flamingos. Obvious to say, like, I have no clue in real life what a common name for a dinosaur would be. No one really knows realistically, because I mean, they're dinosaurs, they've been extinct forever. We use their scientific names. But it would be interesting if somehow some Jurassic Park scenario happened in real life, minus all of like the death and, you know, dinosaurs breaking out and killing people and all of that, and corporate espionage. It would be cool to see like how culture around those dinosaurs actually was created and what people would call them and stuff like that. Because like even like African elephants, their scientific name is not Elephas. That would be the Asian elephants. They're actually like a species or a genus called Loxodonta. So like even that, like no one's going around saying, "Oh, I want to go see the Loxodonta." So it is interesting to think about. And I'm really not sure exactly how the lore of this park would work with everything. Like, are these like they've always been around and this is like a world where dinosaurs never get extinct, or what? Or is it just like the generic, you know, genetic creation or time travel, you know, call back to Prehistoric Park? But it's not a solid, I know exactly what the lore of this park is. It's really just a modern zoo with modern design philosophies, just with extinct creatures. So now we have about pretty much the general layout of the entire enclosure figured out. We've got two different viewing areas, and it's very important to have multiple angles of viewing your enclosure from, and trying to think about differentiating those viewpoints, because it really makes your habitat feel a lot more spacious if there are two viewpoints that are relatively close but have different perspectives. Like if you can cut those into two, it honestly can make the exhibit feel more spacious, even though, you know, realistically this isn't the largest enclosure. So here we're back on the stables. We actually added these beams in, and there I am going around so that they're on every single panel. For this stable, I kind of wanted to go a bit rustic, something that has probably been around for a good, at least minimum like 10 years, maybe a lot more, honestly, who knows. But I did want to go for like a rustic feel, something that had definitely been like created when the first like construction occurred in the park. And I'm pretty sure I nailed that. I think it looks really good, especially once you get the roof on. The roof looks really nice in my opinion for such a simple structure. But I am not really sure exactly where I want to go with the rest of the park. Obviously this looks a bit rustic, and the enclosure, or not the enclosure, the entrance looks very rustic, but I might swap it up as things go on. I don't want to do a completely like rustic looking park. I do want some modern flair to it. No, modern aesthetic to it, not flair. I guess both words work. But I'm not sure. I also don't know about like theming areas, because I know in real life zoos, animals are often put in geographical ranges. Geological would be, you know, time. They're put in geographical ranges, so you know you have your African sections, you have your North American, your Asian sections, and you know you sometimes get some places where they're kind of scattered. Like reptile houses definitely have just a plethora of different regions represented. But for dinosaurs, especially with Prehistoric Kingdom having such a limited amount and dinosaurs being so scattered across not only regions but time, I'm not exactly sure how I want to go about laying out the park. So for right now, we're kind of going with this area that's a bit more older, and basically we're just gonna roll with it and have these areas be older. Not so much themed, more so just whatever animals that they had here that they needed a place for, they probably put them in here. And maybe these like exhibits swapped around a couple of times. But yeah, I'm kind of going with the flow here, throwing in some stuff for variety. Some of the animals that just don't fit in well with other animals. Obviously, in the future, I'm sure we can do probably a Hell Creek section, probably a Morrison Formation section, the big dinosaur areas. But for right now, we're just going with some simple things. I also think it'd be interesting to have multiple different subspecies represented in their own enclosures. So for example, we could definitely do another Parasaurolophus enclosure at some point if it fits well with other animals in a different section of the zoo. I don't want to call it a zoo because it's not real animals, or not alive animals. They're definitely real, but I really don't know what to call it. Extinct wildlife park. That definitely has a ring to it. I don't know about that one. There really isn't a good word for this type of zoo. It's definitely a type of zoo, and it would be considered one in real world, but calling it a zoo is just so lame. It needs some oomph to it. I guess park is definitely the main one people think of because of Jurassic Park, Prehistoric Park, but I don't know. Every time I try to think of the word park, it comes out zoo, so it's definitely a struggle to keep myself from saying zoos. So yeah, we're working on the interior now. At first I went for this double stall style, which would have like maybe a gate in the middle between each of these. Definitely a lot longer. But then I decided going for more of a classic hall down the middle with rows on both sides having pins in it. And they're actually functional, surprisingly. I decided to leave all of the doors open just to give them extra space instead of like closing off the way it would be realistically. It'd probably have like maybe one open, maybe none at all, and they're just in the yard. But I left it all open just for them to use the space. That's another big thing I wanted to do with this build, is just keep everything functional, because the functionality of this park is definitely important to me compared to Prehistoric Park, because there's nothing in Prehistoric Park that is functional from a in-game mechanic wise. Once I'm happy with everything, layout wise, I start getting down to the nitty gritty. I add these little doors in for keepers to kind of go through if they need to. And then eventually we get around to adding chain link as the main divider. I really don't think chain link realistically would keep an animal of this size, but in my head, I'm kind of assuming that, or I'm kind of headcanoning, I guess, that these animals are like the strength of a zebra, even though that's clearly not the case. They're like the size of elephants, because these animals are relatively small from like a dinosaur standard when you put them beside other, like Edmontosaurus even, like even though they're massive animals, it It feels more right to equate them to something like a zebra or something like, you know, a antelope than to equate them to their actual closest sized comparisons. Because if these guys were the size of elephants, I wouldn't want to know what a sauropod or like a triceratops or even like a T-Rex or something would be like equivalent to in size, because it's just insane. So we go through here and use the hay to kind of make it look like it's lived in. They actually do use the hay, which is great, to sleep on. And we are looking pretty good in here. I've added those vents in on the walls to kind of keep the air quality good in here. I don't know where I heard it from, but I've definitely heard people who are knowledgeable about stables saying that's very important to keep like a good airflow for the animals, which definitely makes sense. You definitely want the animals to not be in a like very dirty, very moldy or something environment. So here we're working on an area where the keepers are able to just look in at the animals in their stables. I'm not sure exactly how realistic this layout is, but we add a little yellow line in there too. It's really, really difficult to think up backstage areas like this for me personally. I don't know why. I just never am able to conjure that up in my mind and be like, I know exactly how to do this, unless I'm directly copying something I've seen in real life. So it was definitely a struggle. Like this area over here where I added these keeper items and different things they need definitely would not look like this in real life. They definitely have some kind of like way to go through without that little door there that goes through the hallway. But I don't work in a zoo. I don't work around animals in stables, so I really couldn't tell you. There we're working with the terrain, trying to smooth it out on the side. It kind of is a little janky because we don't want the inside to have grass, but that's okay. Here we're working on a staff entrance into the area, or the yard. This way they could get in there to clean out the area of like dung and any like grossness that's come off an animal or anything like that. And also like replace feeders and stuff like that. And we kind of covered up with these logs again to kind of make it blend in so that no one can really notice if you're a guest looking from the viewing areas. And then we go ahead and connect it up with some paths. Unfortunately, we don't have anything like staff paths yet, so people, unfortunately, visitors do walk through here, and they like to look at the animals from that side of the enclosure. I don't know why, because it's the worst side of the enclosure to look at it from, but unfortunately the guys on this game are a little stupid. My cat is in here somewhere. Oh, there she is. Okay. And then here we work on a little area, a little staff gate, I guess, connecting the backstage. And like I said, guests just phase right through it. They don't really care. And we make the connection a little messy because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to go back and fix that later. And backstages aren't even my favorite to begin with, so I just don't bother. Here we add the curbs in. They just make everything look so much cleaner. I can't wait until you're able to just get curbs on the paths somehow, because it is so tedious, but it is so worth it right now because it just makes all of your builds look so much better. And it just looks way more detailed. It's such a simple thing, and yet you get so much detail out of it. So yeah, once we're done with that, for the most part, I go back and do more later off camera because I'm sure an entire episode of curbing would be probably get 1 million views, honestly. I'm sure everyone wants to see that for 30 minutes straight. But now we're going to terrain painting. So I wanted to do a realistic style of painting, and when an animal of this size is in an enclosure, there is very little grass that grows. The grass just cannot grow when they are getting constantly trampled by a giant animal. So we go with sand and dirt mix, and I go for this first pass, and I honestly don't like it too much. Eventually we go back and we do a second pass over it, which definitely improves a lot. And on the second pass, I'm a lot more lenient with the grass, because even though the grass doesn't grow, it looks good though. It just looks way better with actual grass and a little bit of greenery on the ground. And at the end of the day, it is our build, so luckily we don't have to worry about these animals actually trampling it. And we're going ahead and adding a couple trees in here, kind of just trying to get the basic broad strokes of the habitat. And once we know where these trees are, it's going to be so much easier to just plant around it, because generally the trees will have more grass around them, a bit rougher of terrain because the animals won't move there as much, and it'll overall be where you want to lay out your brush and your grasses. It is a good general rule of thumb if you are building a habitat that if something obstructs the animal from like walking over it and often like trampling over that area, it's a good idea to add some like grass and brush around there. It just makes sense. If there's an obstacle in the way, they're not going to walk there often, so it's going to have more chance to grow grass. So now we're going through with some rocks, trying to make the ground look a little more rough, and trying to vary this very smooth looking hill. Here we go again, adding in more grass, extra grass. I don't think that it'd be a realistic amount to have, but that's okay. It looks pretty, so that is my logic and reasoning there. So here we're implying that these 2 yards could be separated if a keeper wanted to, if they needed to split the herd for whatever reason. Maybe one is like in quarantine, and then we obviously have some quarantine back behind the stable at some point. We add that, but just in case, I mean, there's not exactly a guide to the behavior of these animals, but maybe they need to be separated for some reason. I don't know. We can make it up as we go along. But a lot of modern zoos with real animals will do this. So here we're making a bit of like a enrichment item for the Parasaurolophus. We are building a grab ball. It's pretty much just a ball filled with delicious flowers, which I'm not sure if they ate flowers, but from a perspective of anyone looking at this build, it just kind of indicates that this is like a tasty looking plant. So once again, we go back to scattering all these rocks on the ground, and we just go through with like a lot of rocks at this point, trying to make the ground look a bit rough, especially in areas where they don't walk. Like I said, that's a generally good area to include your rock structures. And then we sink them in the ground a little bit so they're not too big of eyesores. And it looks like they're half buried, honestly. And yeah, there we go. This looks pretty good so far. We're gonna go through with some more plants here. Once again, sinking them in the ground. It's a really good strategy to just make your grasses and make your plants look more connected to the environment. And here we go again with the terrain brushes, because I decided once again that I thought it was a little too noisy, I guess would be the right word. Okay, so here we have our little holding pen in the back. And we designed this to kind of be a bit more utilitarian. This is not something the guests should be seeing unless they are like a backstage tour or something for whatever reason. And at that point, that's someone like me or someone like you watching this video who really likes zoo design. Or at least I'm assuming you do if you're this far into a park building game time-lapse video. But yeah, like, the guests aren't going to see it, so we don't have to bother dressing it up. And the animals don't care about how their environment really looks. So we moved that water thing there. And in here we actually split it into a gate, which I thought looked really good. I don't remember, I think we accidentally like deleted it because I was going to like redo it in a way that the Parasaurolophus could actually walk through, but I think I actually ended up deleting it in the final product. I don't actually know. But yeah, I mean, it looks good here, so that's good that it looks like something smart I did in a time-lapse. Everybody's gonna think, wow, he's so smart and so clever and so cool for building that. What a good build. We don't really work on too much of the back entranceway or any of like the areas where like shipments of food would come in. That's beyond my range, honestly. I'll probably do more of that later on, but that's something that I really don't have I have almost no skill or no knowledge of how that would work. That's more road planning than anything. And that's going to do it for today, guys. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.